Good evening, Tyler, Melodie. How are
Colton.
you guys today?
It's good. It's 2024.
2024. It's a very formal opening. Good evening.
Good evening,
My dear
close
sir.
personal friends.
Good evening, acquaintance. Acquaintance.
Hello, and Merry New Year.
And Merry New Year. You guys ready to hear a story?
I am ready.
So
A
ready.
spooky story.
Okay.
What better way to
Darkness.
start the new year
Yeah,
than
so
a spooky story?
today we're going to be reading a story that I wrote, actually, which one isn't always true, but I wrote this one. It's called Alone. It's part 1, the first 3 days. So it does follow from that title that there may be more days than just 3.
Allegedly.
I wrote this, I think, 2 years ago. It didn't directly follow, but it almost followed the first story that we put out, which was The Graveyard Shift. And then I put out another one that I forgot the name of, and then I wrote Alone. So we've done a few different things with this one. The first format we did is we actually tried to produce it as an audio drama, which is something we never released, hopefully at some point.
Coming soon.
And today, we're just going to read it. You guys have both heard this story before, so it isn't new. Any thoughts going in? I know it's been a long time, so I don't know how much you remember.
I have forgotten most of it.
Good. So it's all new. It's a fresh experience for you. Melodie?
I feel like I remember like the general story points of it, but it has been a long time, so I don't really remember details and everything. So
Okay.
this will be good.
So I guess just for full transparency, this isn't going to be a surprise for them. I have some other stuff cooking that in the future, maybe. Let's get started, shall we? Alone. Part 1. The first 3 days. Written by Colton Huskinson. File _001. Recorded on January 10th at 5:57 a.m. The world ended, and I slept through it. File _002. Recorded on January 10th at 6:15 a.m. I said world before, but I have no way to know. I believe that the event happened on January 1st. Someone's New Year's wish was pretty messed up, I guess. Shit. Not funny, Scott, and not the time for jokes. I stayed home Saturday. I was hungover and had no interest in going out for the sake of being out. So I told Terry, Nat, Tucker, and Carol that I couldn't go downtown. They mocked me for being hungover and a lightweight, all good-natured. I agreed. Carol chastised me, saying she still had my Christmas gift, and that I was a nerd for not coming. I laughed and told her it was just an excuse so we could all hang out again when I wasn't feeling like an old man past his partying age. I laid around and played video games the rest of the day. At about 5:30, I smoked a joint and fell asleep watching Stranger Things for the nth time. There is a cat who was attacking the house.
That's our bad.
He has jumped on the ground. He walks around the corner.
And I guess while we're going, since this is the first one, feel free to interrupt at any time if you have questions.
Very well.
You want to know how, what insane thought I had that made me write insane things?
I know why you wrote Stranger Things, because you just watched it for the first time.
I actually had, yeah. At 7 p.m., I used a food delivery app to place an order for a burrito and a horchata from my favorite taqueria downtown. I dozed off again while I waited. I woke at 7:30 to every light in my house flickering. Blackouts are a very real thing in Northern California, granted not usually during the winter, so I didn't pay attention to it. My order had never been received, which was annoying, but not suspicious. Saturday night after New Year's, it was easy to assume that they were busy and short-staffed, but I was hungry. So I canceled it and tried to order a burger instead. That was when the power went out. My internet and cell service with it. Fucking phone. I'd sworn.
Sorry.
We just love swearing.
He swear. It's funny how the loss of the familiar makes us angry. Irrational even. We are nothing if not petty primates. I piled blankets on my bed in case the power didn't come back, ate some cheese and crackers for dinner, and crawled under the covers listening to 90s new metal on my phone. Okay, so originally when I wrote this, I actually hired a freelance editor. I hired a number of them.
Oh,
I sent it out to a bunch
that.
of people. One of the notes that I got back from the editor was, the power's out, there's no cell, how would he listen to metal on his phone?
Because you downloaded it.
And that's what I was like. I was like, are we so far past the era of downloading things that like people forget?
They're like, you can't stream, the internet's down. And you're like, yeah, I downloaded it.
I was like, I mean, it's fair because I didn't address that it was downloaded, but also
But
like
it's also not a far jump to just assume that you had.
I thought it was a funny. I mean, she had a lot of very good notes. Like but that one stuck out to me a little bit. Where I was like,
where you're like, am I old?
Am I old? am I a boomer? Guys, am I a boomer? Let's see, where was I? It's funny how I lost my blah blah blah. Damn it, I lost my place. Okay, and I crawled under the covers. What's up?
Nothing.
Oh. I crawled under the covers listening to 90s new metal on my phone. I didn't see any of this as odd. Power outages are annoying, but hardly strange. Losing my connection to the rest of the world always feels weird. I hate it when the illusory veil of interconnectedness suddenly vanishes, but it isn't a harbinger of anything more than inconvenience. The next day, Sunday the 2nd, was more of the same. The power was still out, and my house was a lot colder than I was used to. I stayed in bed late, just to enjoy the distinctly winter feel of warm blankets and chill air, something I hadn't felt since I left college. Eventually, I got out of bed and started gathering clothes for a load of laundry. I had it all loaded and drenched in detergent before I remembered the power was out. Half my clothes was slimy and stank like soap. Rather than sulk, I made a breakfast of frosted shredded wheats and 2% milk. The milk tasted off, and the shredded wheat a little stale. The bachelor life has its downsides. No one to remind you to throw out old food. I needed, because obviously men are incapable of knowing when food is bad.
Yeah,
especially when the power had been out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's bad.
I needed to go grocery shopping if I was going to survive an extended outage, so I grabbed what little cash I kept at home, just in case the tills were down, and stepped outside. My car was parked in the driveway. I had a garage, but I'd filled it with old arcade machines instead. The neighborhood was different. So much of the ambient background noise comes from electrically powered devices, and its absence was unsettling. I could hear the branches of my neighbor's box elder tickle her roof and the squeak of a gate being shifted by the breeze. Very distantly, the sound of music and the idle of someone's car drifted to my ears. There was no hum of the transformers or the mostly ignored whoosh of the freeway. It was peaceful and frightening. It came with a sense of vulnerability. The sky was large and wide open. So large, I felt like I might fall into it. I remember getting in my car and realizing that the radio would be a good way to check on the scale of this outage. I hadn't thought about it before, because who still listens to the radio?
Same.
The unease from being outside doubled when I got nothing but static on every channel. For a second, I heard the faintest snatches of sound on an AM station, but the interference was so bad I couldn't make it out. This was the first really odd thing, because I thought the transmission range... So this is interesting. This is where I was... At some point, I was nerding out about AM versus FM, and I decided I had to make a whole paragraph about how it works. So this has been a while since I wrote this. It was really interesting to realize where my writing has matured, and I wouldn't include things that I included then, and I would have shortened things.
That was only 2 years ago.
But this next paragraph is it's interesting. This was the first really odd thing, because I thought the transmission range for AM radio was much further than that of FM. I was pretty sure that AM didn't need line of sight for transmission, because the radio waves were large enough they could bounce off the ionosphere, especially at night. So the power outage had to have happened in a radius of at least a couple 100 miles, or I'd be picking up stations from outside my town. Had all of Northern California lost power? Maybe into Oregon and Nevada too? So the interesting thing there is it's useful as a plot device. I'm using it to say, hey, it's a large scale outage.
Yeah.
But that literally could have been, hey, I thought AM radio went further, so maybe it's a bigger outage than just my
Instead of
without the background.
So anyway, the radio waves are larger and they bounce off the ionosphere following the curvature of the Earth.
I do remember reading
Unless-
that the first time around and thinking, like, oh yeah, I remember that it needed to be a bigger radius, but I didn't know all of the nerdy details. So it is cool to read that, but it can be
It's just so
shortened.
jarring to be like, story. So anyway, the way that AM, FM are different is because... Anyway.
Unless your character is meant to be that much of a nerd.
But he's really not.
Yeah, but he's not.
He's like a...
Because if you
dark
did
and
that
broody.
and then you like went into a story of like, yes, I was bullied in high school, so I was in AV club. Then it'd be like, yeah, he would go on a tangent. Actually, the waves are bigger, so technically, even if you were in Carson City, you wouldn't hear that.
I gotta get a drink. Vamp, Tyler, vamp, quick.
I don't know how anymore. It's been too long.
It's been too long. That's alright, I have a story for us. The ignition turned over a couple times before my car started. The neighborhood children used to dash into the street unexpectedly, so I watch the sidewalks and the front of homes as I drive. Actually zoomed. We're professional. I've never been an attentive driver, so I take extra care in residential areas. My neighbor across the street, Meg, had left her door open, and I wondered how she wasn't freezing her kids to death. Unless maybe she had power?
It's the most California thing I've ever heard. The door is open. They're going to freeze to death. And you're like, it's 48 degrees at night here this time of year.
Yeah, growing up, I would like go outside and do chores in like negative 20 Fahrenheit with like out a coat.
Yeah.
Cause
I didn't have it
like,
that cold.
You're just like, if I go fast enough, I'll be done quick, and I don't need to bother putting all this stuff on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yikes.
Speed over comfort.
No.
Unless maybe she had power. Then I was too occupied driving around a car parked at an angle in the street to worry about Meg. What the hell? I thought as I passed. What are these idiots doing? The car had rolled into another vehicle, leaving a little dent behind. There was no one in the driver's seat. I wondered if I should stop and make sure everyone was okay. I turned onto Berkeley and saw a handful of other cars parked just as haphazardly. A couple were wrecked, one wrapped around a telephone pole, another over in the funeral home's driveway. I rolled down my window to get a better look. My car was cold, the windows foggy. Several were still running, as if their owners had just gotten out, closed the door, and wandered off. I drove slowly, wondering if I was heading towards danger. I half expected a Godzilla-sized monster to step into the skyline, or, more realistically, a group of criminals to hold my car at gunpoint and demand I get out. Whatever happened, I was putting my foot down and driving. No chance in hell I was getting out of my car. Well, that's what I told myself, with a likely false sense of bravado.
I really like that there's cars wrapped around telephone poles, and he mentions that there's cars parked weird. It's like, something's going on. Freaking Debbie's over the white line.
I feel like that's something that I would notice.
A car crashed.
I feel like that's something I would notice, though. Like, you're like, well, those cars are all at weird angles. That one's wrecked. Like, that one's rolled over. Like, it's like everybody abandoned their vehicle in a hurry.
Oh, I know. I just like the specific of parked ones.
Yeah.
like the ones that are like on the road crashed, and then it's like, also, that one's parked weird. I just like to imagine a character.
That
of a
one
person
double
like
parked.
That. Yeah.
Does fit kind of like his
like quirkiness.
His weirdness.
That he's like, yeah, one's wrapped around the pole, but like, you know what really grinds my gears?
That one's double parked.
Parking violations.
Parking violations. The first street was worse than Berkeley. Dozens of cars were strewn across the road, like a giant haphazard child that spilled a bucket of toys. Someone's 4x4 was totaled against the pylons by the pumps at the gas station, and another car was up on the lawn of the First Christ Church. The cross knocked nearly on its side. Symbolism. I could smell gasoline and see a column of smoke drifting above the skyline to the east. This slice of Patmos, California was a mess.
Classic.
More symbolism.
Where did you get the inspiration for it to be in California?
I don't know. It definitely wasn't because I live there.
Good point. Smart. Write what you don't know.
That is what they say.
Also, Patmos isn't made up, but it is like a town. I think it's in the Book of Revelations.
Nice.
So apocalyptic sort of theming.
Apocalyptic literature.
Symbolism.
Symbolism.
Patmos. So this is a series of paragraphs that I'm actually weirdly proud of. So we'll see if you guys feel the same way. File _003. Recorded on January 10th at 7:10 a.m. Patmos was a quiet town between Dublin and Walnut Creek, about 15 miles inland from the 680 towards Mount Diablo. It was a picturesque suburban town whose sensibilities were trapped sometime in the late 80s or early 90s. If the American dream were a town, Patmos would have been it, with everything problematic that entails. When there was water, the lawns were green and the picket fences a nice white contrast. Everyone drove the speed limit and went to bed by 10:30. You mowed your lawn every week and put out your trash on time, because nothing bad ever happens in Patmos. It was the kind of place where upper middle class moms worried about whether their kid was going to Stanford or Berkeley. They claimed to want better for their children because God knows they were trapped in an abusive, toxic hell, their dreams dead or dying from the long years of marriage and abandonment. But really, they just yearned for the control they never had. It was the kind of place where the dads worked at the same tech firm in the valley for 20 years, made bank, and burned their souls out so completely that only cocaine, alcoholism, and secret affairs kept them going. It was the kind of place where children were ignored by their parents, and no one listened to them when they said who they wanted to be, who they really were. They weren't allowed to go to a no-name art school. They weren't allowed to go to a no-name art school and become someone unimportant while they chased their dreams, because their dad was a big shot at the firm and their mom had to impress her father. It was the kind of place that is safe on the street at night, but the kids died by their own hands far too often. It was the kind of place people went to smile and look happy, to own a boat and a 3-car garage, to raise their family with good American values, and to slowly die on the inside. But nothing bad ever happens in Patmos.
That's really good.
I don't know, I was always very proud of that for some reason.
So, San Ramon.
Yeah, it's a very happy place, clearly. As I drove north on First Street, I couldn't help but gape at the chaos around me. It wasn't action movie destruction, but it was profound for this boring nothing city. I saw crashed cars, doors hanging wide, fires. The more I looked, the more I saw, and even an overturned semi-trailer. So from a writing perspective, some of the things that I would change at this point, if I was writing this today, is I've told this 12 times now that there's wrecked cars.
Yeah.
We get it.
What are the... Question from the pack.
You go in the back.
How are the cars parked?
They're badly.
Oh my god, this town's a muck. Stanford grad never parked a car.
Must be Berkeley.
Must have been those Berkeley fucks.
Berkeley.
No hate, but hate.
No, hate them. Fuck them.
Yeah.
For the first time, I was afraid. For the first time, I was afraid. Something very, very bad had happened. I couldn't help but frantically check my mirrors and the streets around me. My eyes found shadows and turned them into grim figures waiting to do me harm. My ears searched for the telltale sounds that would describe order to my mind. Sirens, people, anything remotely normal, and found only silence. The collision warning chirped at me. The collision warning chirped at me and I was thrown forward by the automatic braking. The steering wheel jumped up and took a bite out of my bottom lip. Blood filled my mouth. I'd been so preoccupied by the city, I'd nearly hit an abandoned car. Fuck! I remember screaming, my heart thundering somewhere between between a panic attack and terror. Jesus Christ. I knew I was going to lose my voice on this one. It's almost like I've been traveling for
a literal month.
Alright. I whipped the car around the other vehicle and stomped on the gas. My little 4-cylinder didn't rocket away, but it got me moving again, which helped with the growing trepidation. My mind was full of questions. What if something had happened and I'd missed the alarm? Was I supposed to be hiding? Is that what everyone else was doing? I didn't know, and the further I drove, the worse my impending sense of doom grew. The Godzilla creature in my mind's eye loomed over the city. I made it to the grocery store purely on muscle memory. There were only a couple dozen cars in the parking lot, and I found a space close to the front. Deliberately not looking, I grabbed my reusable bags, stepped out, slammed the door, and sprinted across the parking lot. I didn't know if I was running away from something or running in fear towards it. Perhaps both? The doors were closed, and the blackness inside swallowed all but a few feet of the floor where the late morning sun shone. Right, I muttered to myself. Right. Power's out. I had a vague memory of a class I'd taken when I worked retail. One of those corporate training events everyone suffers through. It had been about our response to off-normal events, like floods and earthquakes. We'd been trained that after a power outage, we had 30 minutes before the store must close to the public, though usually customers were ushered out immediately. The rule was driven by fire safety, but also served to reduce energy consumption. I'd worked at a department store in the mall, not a grocery store, but I figured the policy must be similar. We'd only had about 2 hours of backup generator energy before the building lost power altogether, enough to run some lights and not much else. It's a really long way to say the power was out in the store, too.
I just like the term off-normal events.
Yeah, that also probably has something to do with...
it might be your background.
Might be my background. So that's other things like where my writing has definitely matured is I very deliberately choose words now. Like if I write something in what I do now, it's almost always like I'm thinking about how the word will impact a person.
Yeah.
So I didn't do that when I chose off normal because that's the word that I use in my daily life and that fits for me. But when someone else hears it, they go,
off normal.
What a weird way to like.
Yeah, as someone who doesn't do what you guys do, that doesn't make.
You're like an emergency. Yeah, like an emergency. Also, the had I missed the alarm? Was I supposed to be hiding? When I hear or read books like this, my brain can't stop thinking about what if there was a system where it was an alarm and it was like everyone hide.
But that does exist.
And then I'm thinking like true apocalyptic.
Oh yeah,
where like you miss it and then it's like. How'd that guy die? He didn't check his phone, dude. I can't stop thinking of scenarios where like that would be a real thing instead of listening to the story as it continues. I just sit there and daydream like, could you imagine?
But I mean, there is like a global paging service. So like, what if the government everybody hide now, and you're just like, because he literally smoked a joint and fell asleep.
Oh yeah,
so
that's
he's like
true.
Passed out, stoned.
Oh my god, we might have just created a new fear for stoners. Dude, what if we don't hear the alarm and a freaking apocalypse starts and we didn't hear the alarm? And had we known, we would have went to the bunker that I don't know exists, but it would have texted us the location too.
Or it just tells you to like hide in your homes and he's like out driving around.
Yeah.
I could see
and
the
go
kids
park
in
your
that
car.
70s show talking about that.
Go park your car haphazardly. Go. Also crash your car around. Go.
The government text is like, attention U.S. citizens, an emergent event is happening. You must park your car poorly and then hide.
And then other ones is like, you are one of the victims that has to crash your car.
Signed, Obama.
Obama. I thought Biden was president now.
Oh. They're coming for us.
I gotta check my phone. Oh my god, it says to park your car weirdly outside and your car has to be crashed on a telephone pole.
Shit, mine says you must wrap your car around a telephone pole.
Damn it!
Alright, let me limber up my neck here. Alright, the power had been out for nearly a full day. Of course, there was no one inside. Sorry, let me reread that because I ate that sentence. The power had been out for nearly a full day. Of course, there was no one inside. So why were there still cars in the parking lot? He's very...
It's very inquisitive.
Yeah.
Questioner.
Jesus Christ.
It's okay.
I sometimes forget that these are audio files, that he's like talking to himself.
Yeah, I won't spoil the end, but he is talking to himself.
Captain's log.
Captain's log. I swallowed and leaned in, cupping my hands around my face to get a better look. My eyes scanned the interior, up and down the row of registers, and beyond to the darkened alleys of shelves. It was too dim to see much. Part of me hoped to find someone, but a larger part of me panicked at the thought. I needed people, and I was too afraid to find them. A face materialized. This iPad is killing me. A face materialized out of the shadows, pale and ghoulish, with blackened eyes. I screamed and stumbled back, caught my heel on the curb of the cart corral, and fell heavily. My hand went wide, and reusable bags were scattered across the sidewalk, heart racing. I crawled into the street. The cardboard cutout of the smiling store clerk, wearing a Santa hat, was still watching.
Yikes.
That's very I Am Legend. He gets
actually
pissed at the mannequins.
That's actually what I was sort of channeling.
Yeah.
Because that is like a really interesting,
scary ass scene.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a mannequin.
Yeah, and the whole idea is like it's Christmas time. There's like cutouts of like some corporate marketing thing, but it's like super dim, and like all of a sudden he sees this dead face, and he's like, ah.
Also, catch your curb and fall. Like catch your foot on a curb and fall. Anytime I hear them, it's like a whiplash. You're gonna
dude, it hurts so bad.
You're like, whoop, pow.
Hi, cat.
The cat has joined.
All right. File _004. Recorded on January 10th at 8:21 a.m. I didn't do any shopping on the 2nd, choosing instead to flee the grocery store. Actually, Tyler, do you want to finish this out? My voice is just gone.
Swap.
No, I'll just hand this to you.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll interrupt with my injects.
Okay, let me... Oh, you had just started.
Yeah, if you
okay,
just want to
good.
read the file head again, just in case I edit something.
File _004 recorded on January 10th at 8:21 a.m. I didn't do any shopping on the 2nd, choosing instead to flee the grocery store. I don't know who or what it was, but I had the sense of eyes on me, and the feeling didn't leave until I got home and locked the doors. It's hard to put a name to fear, but I was certain I was being hunted. What if all this, the disappearance of everyone in town, was a deliberately orchestrated event and not a natural disaster? I had somehow been missed. The monster threat of my mind shrunk to something smaller and more terrifyingly real. What if a them or an it had taken everyone? Or holy shit! And then the microphones attacked. And then they attacked and made me lose my place. Okay, to start over. The monster threat in my mind shrunk to something smaller and more terrifyingly real. What if a them or an it had taken everyone or forced them into hiding? What if my being out had alerted them and they were hunting me now? It made sense too. Why wouldn't they, it, come for me and anyone like me who had been missed? Of course, it's easy to assign motives to things I have no evidential basis for. I spent the rest of the day hiding. I never wanted to own a gun before, but I desperately wished for one then. I avoided windows as much as possible, even going so far as closing all the blinds and crawling under them when I needed to go from one room to another.
So real quick, because you read so cheerfully,
It's like it's way
jarring
happier.
my brain. I'm like, what a happy-go-lucky paranoid guy. So anyway, like, guys, I closed the blinds and I crawled under because I was scared shitless.
These people are definitely hunting me, and I'm just gonna hide for the day.
Hunting me. All I could picture was Jake Peralta. This is the Jake Peralta scared. Hey guys, there's a murderer coming after me. Okay, bye. Okay, there we go. My behavior was bordering on irrational, but my thoughts at the time were, what if they had interfered or... Oh my god, what? Am I dumb? Can I read? Interfered?
What if they had infrared?
Oh, infrared. Oh. Okay. I totally didn't. I was like, what? Infrared? Okay. Oh, they're alien.
They're special ops. Being hunted by the Navy SEALs.
Yeah, my brain didn't go to that at all. I was like,
when I was writing this,
infrared.
my idea was I was trying to like give him just a jumble of random ideas to like just illustrate that he's not really thinking well. He's just like,
what if it's a monster? What if it's actually the Rapture? No.
What if it's God? What if it's the Navy SEAls? Like,
yeah, what if it's Spec Ops?
I wanted it to feel really spastic and like he was all over the place because he was like, he's suddenly very isolated. There's literally no people. He can't find anybody. He's freaking out. He's like searching everywhere for like rational explanations or even irrational ones.
And like the fact that he'd been driving all day with the silence, just being able to think about all of the different things that could be happening definitely fuels all of that.
Yeah, and now he's like, ah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, continue.
I'm going to redo it. You ready?
Yeah.
Just cut all that. My behavior was bordering on irrational, but my thoughts at the time were, what if they've infrared? How do I know they're looking for me? Or how do I know they aren't looking for me? Sorry. I ate very little, which was good because I don't keep much in the way of spare food at home. I've always been a eat out or order in kind of guy. Because of being a single modicum with disposable income, I suppose. For the majority of the day, I stayed in my room trying to convince myself that this was going to end. And like a good chef whose major seasoning is the degradation of emotional well-being.
Yikes.
Oh my God. I was ready to hear about food. It's like, oh my God. Whose major seasoning is the degradation of emotional well-being. I sprinkled into moments of frantic panic when I heard noises I thought might be them coming for me. I wanted to believe the power would come back, that I'd go outside and everything would be normal. The government would roll in and tell me that I was the lucky survivor of this horrible atrocity. I wanted to believe I'd wake up at any moment in a mental hospital and be told I'd had a psychotic break. I didn't, still don't, care which happened. I just wanted it to end. I rose early in the morning of the 3rd after a restless night of shivering and thinking about what I needed to do. I had to go back out. It wasn't a matter of waiting for the power outage to end. I had to risk it, or if this went on, I was going to starve. Worse, I had no idea if the water would last. I might just easily die of dehydration and starvation because of how ill-prepared I was for an event like this. What happens when there is no treating the water and the pump stop working? Patmos had a water tower supplied primarily by the San Joaquin Reservoir, but how long does a water tower stay full with no one taking care of it? The city felt empty, but what if it wasn't and everyone was hiding like me? How long till we used all the water? Or what if a main line sprang a leak and the town drained? Before I braved town again, there were a couple of things I needed to do. Firstly, I wanted to check on my neighbors to see if any of them were still home or alive. Not disappeared like everyone else. The fires and the wrecked cars told a grim story of Patmos, one that might not bode well for a person alone. It would be safer in a group. Secondly, I wanted a weapon. Brutal. Am I right? What a poor guy. File _005. Recorded on January 10th at 9:02. Finding a weapon turned out to be easy. I had an old slugger of my dad's and a foot-long machete in a box I'd never opened. It was a Christmas gift from an outdoorsy uncle who never understood why real men don't live on the dirt in the woods.
I mean, come on. You have someone like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
We all do.
Real
men live outside.
Wait, some people aren't like that?
Yeah, no, city folks.
Oh, well, yeah. He and my dad are more rugged and prepared than I am. Both of them are quintessential macho men. They both live in Las Vegas and were no doubt living like kings with their food storage and backup generators. If they were alive, of course. I hated them for it. I would have given anything to have them close by. The hard part was trying to find a weapon that made me feel safe. If what was happening did involve more rational threats than humans, what was I supposed to... Oh, it does say rational.
Can I see it?
Yeah.
Rational threat, like human.
Oh, I guess I just read it backwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I literally thought this was like more rational than it.
More rational than not human?
What?
What if literally the predator, and he's like, now that's more rational.
If what was
That's what I'm
happening
talking
did involve
about.
more rational threats like humans? So there we go. I said then. That's why I was like, huh.
Weird.
Well, let him cook. What this degraded emotional well-being. What was I supposed to do if they had guns or were wearing armored vests and helmets? Run at them and try to stab their soft spots? Worse, what if it wasn't a them, but an it? Some undefined creature that whispered horrors down my spine at night. Was I going to fight a monster with a machete?
Real quick, what was that face? Melodie's face.
Whisper down my spine at night? That's good.
Yeah, as soon as I
cringe.
saw this section, I was like, I need to say this monotone and really like, creepy. Oh yeah. Was I going to fight a monster with a machete? It seemed unlikely. I had the other fear too, still in the back of my mind that spoke not about people or things, rather something greater than all of that. A cosmic Godzilla, so to speak.
You just added that, you son of a bitch. No, I said it's a cosmic ending of things.
A cosmic Godzilla, so to speak.
Oh,
That's the
I must have changed it then. Okay, because the final recording, it was a cosmic ending of things.
Oh, okay, you must have changed it.
Or
Yeah,
I
a cosmic
something else.
Godzilla.
That's interesting. What a choice. I can't believe I ever wrote that.
That's when you said you wrote that, and I was like, no, admittedly, I've read other things wrong. This one is definitely a capitalized,
word for
I
word.
think-
a capitalized G
So
Godzilla.
this went through like a number of like editors, things like that. And then when we produced the audio drama, I like chopped it all up and turned it into a script. And I changed more things when I was turning it into a script. So when you listen to like this versus the actual production we put together, the production definitely reads better and like has a little less of the weird stuff we're joking about right now.
Yeah.
Because it just went through more editing. And that's really the core of good writing is just edit.
Well, that's true. Of any writing.
I just write a note here.
Yeah, write a note on the story I will never change again.
Understood. Will not change.
So just imagine that sentence said something more along the lines, a cosmic ending of things.
That's where I thought it was going to go.
That's what it's
Because I was
supposed to
literally
say.
like letting myself just not hear or read ahead. And I was like, oh, that cosmic Godzilla, so to speak.
Yeah, no,
I thought
that
we've
is,
made enough Godzilla jokes at this point.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice that I definitely made.
Okay.
Or it wasn't on Google Drive, so maybe you guys pranked me.
You do have access to it.
Kidding,
There would've
none of
been
you guys. I
changed
couldn't
notes.
get you guys to beta read it, let alone prank me by changing something.
Yeah, we can't read. Dude.
Yeah.
You know the last book I read? Me neither.
Well, you.
This. Okay. A cosmic Godzilla, so to speak. And what good was a machete? However long the blade and masculine the wielder. Against that? I decided to go next door with this. I decided to go next door with the slugger. It had more reach, and I was afraid of accidentally cutting one of my neighbors. If they were home, they might be as frightened as I, and panic when they saw me at their door with a huge knife. The slugger was a little less threatening and somehow more neighborly. It's hard to describe how much courage it took to unlock the front door and step into the street again. After a night and most of a day spent huddling inside, as I left the protection of my home, the world sucked in tight around me. My heart pounded in my ears. I thought I might pass out or turn back. I didn't either. I took one step out, and then another. One foot always follows the other, after all. Soon as I was out under the eaves and into the too bright sun, the wind hissed through the box elder again, and the gate kept on its own arrhythmic time with subtle and unpleasant sounds. The music and the idling cars were gone. In their place, a yet more overcoming silence. Silence so heavy I could barely breathe. Clench your jaw as tight as you can, the sound that rushes through into your ears as your face trembles. That is how the silence felt. It was terrible and crushing. I knocked on the frame of Meg's door and shouted inside. Meg? I remember wincing at the loudness of my own voice. Meg, are you home? No one answered, so I stepped in. I was in the void peeking into a private slice of someone's life. One I wasn't supposed to see. Meg and I had spoken in passing often, and our conversation were always pleasant. But I'd never been inside her home. It wasn't nice. It had the cluttered... Oh, wow. It had the cluttered, detrital look of a home kept by a single mother of two, one who had no time for luxuries like cleaning. The floor was littered with trash, crumbs, and toys. A buckled car seat was by the door. A buckled car seat was by the door, as was a purse. There were several pairs of children's shoes scattered haphazardly around the entrance, along with a dozen coats heaped on various pieces of furniture. A garbage bag that didn't make it to the bin sagged by the door, full of what looked like dirty diapers. Meg? My voice caught in my throat. The words, a little more cracked whispers. Meg, are you home? The door is open. I'm coming in. I walked quickly through the front door, my baseball bat up and ready. The kitchen was much the same. It looked messy and well lived in, but with no people. The 2 bedrooms were deserted, as was the only bathroom. I checked the backyard and the small shed. There was nothing but toys and a lawnmower. I went back to the front room. It was eerie being in her home. It felt haunted inside, but I was the one haunting it. Somehow I had crossed into a spectral plane and drifted into her life, a voiceless, disembodied spirit spying on the intimate moments of a fractured family. I took the trash bag by the door to the bin. The handle on the dumpster was old and sun-rotted. It broke when I opened it. Maybe I'd call the trash service and see about getting our new dumpster when this was all over, if it ever was. I went to Jim and Kathy Whitaker's next. The old couple lived across the street, in the house next to Meg's. Their home was nearly as familiar to me as my own. I had spent an otherwise lonely holiday dining at their table. They'd survived their own 3 children and had no grandkids. I had become a sort of pseudo-grandchild to them. They were very dear to me, and it hurt to them, and it hurt me to think about what might have happened to them. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker? My doc was too fast and too hard. Are you home? It's Scott. I just want to check in. You guys need anything? I wanted to go inside and find a warm hug and a place to hide that wasn't alone. I wanted out of the sun and away from the Caravis sky. I wanted Jim's quiet approval and Kathy's bottomless love. No one answered. I knocked again. Hello? I need to come in. Please. I'm scared. Still, no one answered. I broke down, and then if anyone ever listens to this, come away with me now. Let that past self wallow in his misery and grief, fear and hurt, anger and confusion. Let us leave him alone while he bangs and claws at the door, trying to scrape back a life that deep down he knows is gone forever. It isn't enough to say that he recovered, that he checked other homes, that he wandered through dozens of abandoned lives. It is enough to say that he found no one besides his own weak reflection. Eventually he returned, broken and hollow.
That's so sad.
Dude, your voices sound kind of fucked. You want me to take a turn?
Yeah, holy
Can I
shit.
take a turn?
Oh yeah, Melody, you can take a turn.
Yeah, you
Sorry,
read
I don't
better
know
than
why I
do.
just skipped you. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's fine.
No, you don't know how to read.
I'm gonna get water because I can't breathe.
Yeah.
No, it is amazing how much your voice is like...
Normally I'm fine, but I'm just not like there from.
Yeah, I also caught a little of the sickness over the holiday.
That was a very haunting little piece of it.
I know. Oh shit.
It was a very good insight into his obvious trauma and just like sad thought process of especially the like abandoned lives.
I was trying to capture somebody who is like, obviously he's not a particularly like brave person. He's very afraid of a lot of things, and I'm trying to like I think there's this sense that even in his normal life, when the world hasn't emptied, he's also still just a very fearful person. He's very emotional. He's very dramatic. But then you take that person and you put them in a horrible place and you take everything away from him. Now it's that, but it's times 10. And that's kind of what I was trying to go for. Is like one of the editors that edited it said he was a very, I think he called him a pathetic person.
Oh,
the editor wasn't being mean.
No,
he
he's
was just
right.
He's like the thing that he basically said was like, this is a narrative. This is a narrative about an end time thing written from the perspective of a very emotional and borderline pathetic character, and it's very true. He is very pathetic, but I also think he's just emitting the emotions that probably we would all be feeling, whether we're expressing them or not.
Yeah.
And being very dramatic about it.
Yeah, I think it's very. I feel like in all of these like apocalyptic TV shows and movies that we see, they always like try to portray something like this, but then they end up being the hero they always were and brave and whatever. And
yeah, boy,
this is more like,
let me tell you,
freak the fuck out.
He like, sure gets over it in the end, kids.
Sure does.
Yeah, nothing bad ever happens. Okay. File _006, recorded on January 10th at 9:41 a.m. Now that I knew my neighborhood was empty and I had weapons, it was time to go. I needed more than just food and water. I needed a generator. Having electricity would mean hot meals, maybe even water warm enough I could bathe. More than that, having electricity would feel like a step towards normalcy. In retrospect, it would have made more sense to take from my neighbors' homes. They were empty and no one would care if I did. But part of me worried that they would come back and need their stuff. To the rest of me, it felt akin to grave robbing, something I wasn't ready to do. I decided that I might be able to get all three, food, water, and generator, at a sporting goods store. It could be a one-stop trip. I wanted to minimize the time I spent away from my home, for my own safety and to satiate all the consuming paranoia. I tossed a flashlight, the slugger, and the machete into my car and started to get in. I paused. The paint on the hood of my car was chipping, brownish-orange rust showing on the metal beneath. I hadn't noticed it before, so it must have flaked off recently, within the last couple weeks. It was irritating. The car wasn't even 3 years old. Surely I've only ever parked it outside, but shouldn't that just fade the paint, not make my car rust? It isn't like Northern California gets a lot of rain, nor is it a place where they salt the roads. It didn't matter, and I let it slide from my mind.
So, something, because as the privilege of the writer, I get to do this to you guys. There's a few times now where we've seen things that are just crumbling and decay. And that's sort of like, not only seeding things for like future parts of the narrative, but also it's sort of more symbology.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, sorry.
No, yeah. It's good to point out those things. Nothing on Berkeley was different, and First Street looked much the same. The fires were gone, burned out, I suspect. How many livelihoods had gone up in pillars of greasy smoke while the world stood still? For that matter, how many wrecked cars and broken buildings? I couldn't think about that either. The fear was still there, deep and unsettling, a weight of iron on my shoulders, but not so great as to keep me at home. The necessities of survival overcame the nebulous distrust of the situation, and with a supreme effort of will, I crammed feelings deep down inside, as is only healthy, and pretended I was a stone, unfeeling and unmoving. It didn't work, but I kept driving. Yikes.
I keep my emotions where they're supposed to be. Buried deep inside.
Which, it's funny because clearly he doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, at all.
Yeah, like not even a little bit.
It's just because he can't communicate it to anyone.
Yeah.
Clearly he
It's like they're buried. I mean, I'm literally saying them out loud in a voice recording thing,
for whoever to find.
Yeah.
The sporting goods store was at the north end of First Street, where East Tuckerson turns into West Anderson. The Patmos strip mall had all the usual locations: a shoe store, a place to get wings, bargain clothes, electronics, a bookstore, and a large hardware store.
Real quick, tell me that those aren't the stores that are in every single strip mall
Oh,
ever.
every single one. There's one right down the street.
And it has all of them.
Yeah.
Did you mention the place to get your hair cut?
No, but also that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna have a JC
or
it's gonna have a
nail
Ross's.
salon.
Oh, though, yeah. Ross, probably Boot Barn.
Yeah.
Dick's. Maybe
Home
Winco,
Depot or
if you're
Lowe's.
lucky.
Or Ace.
Yeah, or Ace.
Yeah, if you're in a
And
poor
then
town, Ace.
In Idaho, a Sportsman's Warehouse. In Utah, Cabela's.
Yeah, yep.
So good.
And then insert Chili's or Applebee's.
Or Wingstop.
Or Wingstop.
or Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, or
Yep.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yep. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. I parked in front and stepped out with my weapons and flashlight gripped white knuckle tight. There were dozens of vehicles in the parking lot, many clustered around the wing place. No doubt it had been full of friends and family watching the game together Saturday night. I wondered where Terry, Nat Tucker, and Carol were right now. Had they been there? Were they caught up in all of this, or hiding like me? I should have thought of them sooner. How incredibly selfish that I hadn't. They were my closest friends, family even. I resolved that after shopping, I would go to them. I needed to know that if they were okay. I didn't know what I'd find if it had. I didn't know what I'd do if it had, if they were dead. The store was closed, and without power, the automatic doors didn't open. But I'd planned for this. With skin clammy and my nerves on edge, I took my car keys and threw them as hard as I could at the window beside the door. It took several tries, but eventually the tempered glass exploded in a cloud of dust and 1,000 marble-sized chunks. It was terribly loud. I stepped through the window over the broken glass as softly as I could. Guilt crawled beneath my skin. Would I be in trouble for breaking and entering? Sweet guy. I took a cart.
You mean pathetic?
Oh. I took a cart,
Yeah,
tossed...
I'm his god. I made him. I get to say that.
Okay!
Also, I just realized the kind of funny it makes sense because it's tempered glass, so it wouldn't be as useful to use a baseball bat. But I like that he's hucking his keys forever, and he has a machete.
Yeah.
It says a...
And a
The
bat.
keys are a really good way to break
But they are
tempered
really
glass,
good.
though. Like, if you want to break tempered glass, throw your keys at it.
yeah.
Or a chip off of a spark plug.
Yeah. I was literally thinking that, too, of like, should just went to one of them cars and unscrewed spark plug.
For the nerds in there, it's because you want something that will give you a stress concentration. So you need like a really small point with a lot of force behind it. That's why a bat won't work.
Unless you
the
took
tip
the
of the
keys
machete.
and used the bat.
The machete wouldn't be as good, I don't think, as the keys, but maybe.
Maybe if you got the exact right point on
If you
it.
threw a
But,
spear.
yeah.
Anyway.
To be expert marksman.
We'll try it out.
I took a cart, tossed the baseball bat into the basket, and laid the machete across the child seat. Then I rested the flashlight over the handle to reduce the added wobble from my trembling hands. With the cart between my body and the rest of the store, I started my trek. I got lucky and found several stacks of bottled water near the registers. I made 2 trips from the store to my car until my trunk was full. Then I went back in to find a generator and food. I found a little electric stove on one aisle, which I took, and a whole row of dehydrated camping meals. I reloaded the cart, and went to my car. I crammed the packages around the water and then filled up the back seat. There was enough food to last me for a long time. I shuddered to think what the dollar value of all this would be. How would I pay for it if I was ever made to? I went back into the store again. Each trip was easier, the fear a little less consuming. With the physical effort of loading the car and hauling the water, it became sort of routine. It was still one of the most terrifying things I've ever done. The generators were on an aisle near the back, just past a row of stand-up safes and a camouflage pontoon boat. It was heavy enough that I almost couldn't get it into the cart, but I managed. The box canted at an odd angle. I was done. I just needed to leave. I'd survived this horrible place. Except, they sold firearms here, and I couldn't help thinking how much a gun would calm my mind. So I made a detour toward the north wall and the gun counter. I'm not a gun owner, but I grew up in Colorado and did my share of dates at the gun range as a teenager. I know the basics of firearms and firearm safety. I'm not a marksman, not by any stretch, but I hoped it would never come to that. I wanted to find a 40 cal or 9mm, the 2 handguns I had the most experience with, and then I'd snag several boxes of bullets and leave. The dead heads of animals glared down from the wall above me. Their faces, lit below by the fat flashlight, leered sardonically. It was like they were accusing me of escaping judgment. "You shouldn't be here," they said. "You should be dead like the rest of them." I felt the stale air stir around me as I approached, a soft and cold breeze from outside. I could hear the wind moaning through the broken window. My footsteps sounded hollow on the tiles. I flung my keys at the glass of the display. It shattered like the door had, and I reached in, grabbing a pistol and my keys. It was black, military-looking, and read .40 cal on the barrel. I racked the slide to make sure that everything was there. I didn't know if they removed pieces from the display models. It looked fine, and then I swept several boxes of .40 cal ammunition into the cart. My heart was in my throat as I walked towards the front, but I was excited. This had the feel of an important step. I stared at the gun while I walked, and thought about having it with me while I slept. I had the sudden and intrusive idea that I should load it, press it against my temple, and end this strange nightmare. Something crunched in the glass by the counter. I froze. I heard it again. I told myself it was just the sound of glass expanding and popping. Crunch. It was nothing. I was alone. Crunch. It was a footstep. I heard the whisper of a voice that even now I cannot describe. It made me think of cold places full of dark and rot, dank underworlds with fetid maggots strewn around. I heard no words, but I heard enough. I threw myself against the cart, pushing as hard as I could. My breath hissed in and out as I fought to not hyperventilate. My vision swam, and I plowed through the broken window and over the low sill. The sun was too bright and distracting. This was it. I knew it had to be. The thing, the person, the nameless enemy. It was hard to get the generator in the car, as panicked as I was. I broke the plastic of the door handle and the glove box in my haste. I couldn't have cared less. The pistol got flung to the floorboards, the ammunition behind it. Then I clambered into the driver's seat and smashed the ignition button. The car turned over once, twice, 4 times before it started, the engine running rough for a moment and then coughing into a steady rhythm. I jammed the car into drive and lurched forward. I looked in my rearview mirror as I left, and I saw something.
Yeah, so suddenly you got drunk at the end. I looked in my rearview. Sorry.
As I rationalize it much later, I'm prone to think it was real and not imagined. But if I were going crazy from the isolation, the sleeplessness, and the perpetual fear, would I know? Maybe. But I think it's more likely that I believe in the solidity of my reality until the madness, if indeed it was madness, killed me. But what am I saying? I was alone in a city that emptied overnight. Why not believe in monsters too? The thing that I saw or imagined didn't fully step into the light, instead remaining in the shadows of the store. It had the sense of endings about it. It watched me though I saw no eyes. It was there and it wasn't. It was humanoid and dark, fathomless and empty. It was the end of the world. End of part 1.
Dun, dun, dun.
End. Part 1. Alone. Brought to you by A Novel Thought. Do, 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 do.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Story done. What do you guys think?
I actually really like it. Also, another funny thing that I always think of in moments like this, when people are ransacking stores and they have shopping carts, it makes me laugh. It's a sensible thing to do to get the most material, but it always cracks me up. You're like... like
It is weird. The other one that...
Because I always imagine Fallout where you have infinite inventory where you just put it in your pocket and then it just disappears.
Mm.
But in real life, yeah, you would need a cart.
Several.
But it feels really funny when I picture somebody like going to a gun case, like, okay,
Throw the gun.
and then
in the
like,
the one that
okay,
always,
we're ready.
like always sticks out to me. Like obviously, I chose a first-person narrative style for the story because I wanted it to be very personal.
Mm-hmm.
But it is always weird to think about somebody in a situation like this. Obviously, he's telling it retroactively, but going into that much detail about things that happened and his feelings and stuff like that when he's like recording it to himself.
Yeah.
It's so like you need a reason for the story to be told in some way. Like,
Yeah.
Like the classic first person stories is like detective novels and stuff, and it's always like their chronicle of their case or whatever. And in this case, is this guy's recording his memories of this horrible thing that happened to him, but he's like, it was fathomless and deep. It was there and it wasn't.
Yeah, clearly he's not burying these things. It's all right there, waiting for any excuse to get out.
I just imagine him sitting. I'm not gonna say where he was sitting. That's spoilers. I imagine him telling these stories and then be like, I don't like the way I said that. I need to say that better. Just let me
You
scrub
mean
it.
him doing like anybody on their first school report? So, and then the
The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the
idiot
of the house. Shit. The mitochondria is the house of the power plant.
The power plant of the cell is the midichlorians. The midichlorians are the powerhouse of the cell. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
What good teenage girls.
Thanks.
Bitch. Oh my god.
Also, Zuko is having major zoomies to the level I don't think I've seen him do.
That's because we're
doing
recording
anything.
something. Yeah.
I've never seen him zooming where he jumps up on the wall and doing this.
He does it every few weeks.
Yet, here he is.
All right. Well,
That was Alone, Part 1 by Colton Hankerson.
Carlton Hankerson. Well, thank you guys for being here.
Flawless.
Thank you.
And I will.
Thank you for
having
being.
us.
Thank you for having us at our home.
You're welcome. Anytime. You're welcome over. Literally anytime.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Not sponsored by Apple.